which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any changes to the agenda, Jeff?
You have one additional handout that's to be added to the consent agenda.
Okay.
If that's appropriate, or we could vote on it individually.
Is everybody okay with having it on the consent agenda? Okay. I need approval for the agenda, please.
I'll make a motion.
Steve moves.
I'll second.
Tom seconds. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, public input. If you're going to speak, please come up to the podium and sign in and then state your name. Go ahead, Alan.
Can I sit here?
You want to just sit with, yep, stand there. Uh-huh.
Hi, I'm Alan Lysdahl. My address is 15133 141st Avenue, Wadena. And I'm here to let you know about something that's coming that I feel will not only really benefit Hubbard County, but will benefit the whole state of Minnesota. Oh, is that a speaker?
Yep, you're
Oh.
fine.
Early March, I found out about this event down at the Capitol called Trappers Day at the Capitol. And I thought, I'm a trapper, I'll go down there and support it. And then I had a couple of weeks to think about what I was going to go down there with. And I had a bobcat hunting issue, a wolf hunting issue, and things like that. But then it occurred to me, what is the real problem in Minnesota with the state government? And it hit me that representation is not equal statewide. And I was wondering, why did our founding fathers think that having a bicameral legislature was the way to go? And how would that benefit our government? And when I researched it, I found out what they did was just pure genius. The House of Representatives is based on population, the proportional representation, where the more people you got, the more representatives you got. But the Senate is based on equal representation, where every state gets two senators. Where this little state of Wyoming has the same power in the Senate as California or New York. And so I thought, well, what's the legislature of Minnesota like? So I looked, and yep, House of Representatives, based on proportion. The more people you got, the more representatives you got. And I looked at the Senate, the Senate is exactly the same way. It's based on proportional representation. So really, they are redundant extensions of themselves. There's no check and balance there. So I thought, how can we change that? How can we get that check and balance that we really need in the state government? And I thought, well, if we could change the Constitution to amend it to where it says each county gets one senator. That way, Hubbard County would have the same power in the Senate as Hennepin County. Because right now, Hennepin County has 15 senators in that county representing it. Hubbard County has 1/6 of a vote in the Senate. Senator Utke is divided up between 6 different counties. But this way here, if every county had one senator, there would be fair and accurate representation throughout the whole state. And I'm not asking you for anything right now, but once this bill is introduced, because I talked to Krista Knudsen about this, and she is going to be drafting a bill during the interim and introducing it the next session to where we will amend the Constitution to where we have one county, one senator. So when that happens, and there's an actual bill with a bill number, I would like to come back and ask you to adopt a resolution in support of that. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Ellen. Go ahead.
My name is Vicki Thompson. I'm from Wadena County, and I am in support of what Alan's doing, so I would like to read a few things that we came up with. The problem with state government is that representation is greatly concentrated in some areas and severely diluted in others. The makeup of the Minnesota legislature is such that the numbers of members of both houses are based on proportional representation, making the Senate and the House redundant extensions of each other. That makes it strictly majority rule. pure majority rule is like a lynch mob where the majority gets its way and it doesn't fare well for the minority. It's like two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for lunch. Equal representation in the Senate would protect the rights of the minority, and that representation must be distributed around the whole state so that the values of all will be accurately represented. One county, one senator will ensure that the Minnesota legislature will be a proper reflection of society. With the legislator like this, all bills will have to be passed by the majority of the people in the House and by a majority of the counties in the Senate. One county, one senator will prevent gerrymandering and the delineation of Senate districts. When one county, one senator amendment becomes part of the Constitution, all counties will have the same effect as Hennepin or Ramsey County in the Senate. One county, one senator will provide the hope and encouragement needed to make us proud to be Minnesotans.
Thank you. Did you sign in?
Yes, I did.
Okay, all right, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? All right, we'll close public comment. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the consent agenda. Anything you want pulled?
I'm questioning the May 7th board meetings minutes. I don't know if we just want to discuss it quick here or pull it separately. In the minutes for the meeting, it shows the RFP for the property that's west of Potlatch.
Yep.
But it was, that RFP wasn't actually presented during the meeting. And I don't know if anybody else caught that, reading the minutes. Like I say, I'm just questioning whether that should be included in the minutes.
Well, I did not catch that.
It's a draft.
It's a draft, but there again, like I say, the draft wasn't presented at the meeting. And I just thought of that this morning. I did contact Jeff yesterday. There was an error in one of the sections, and Jeff commented at that point it was a draft. And then I didn't give it another thought until this morning, eating breakfast and thinking about today's meeting. And technically, it wasn't presented during that meeting, so is it proper to have it as part of the minutes from that meeting? And then like I say, I read it. I don't know if anybody of the other 4 board members read the RFP at all. And I'd like to also kind of maybe discuss it.
Okay. So do you want to lead the discussion?
Sure.
Okay.
Do you want to discuss it now, or?
So, actually,
We could pull it from the minutes
yeah, we can pull it from the
and
minutes.
then discuss it after approving the rest of the consent agenda.
Okay. Would that be okay with you?
Yes.
Okay, let's do that. And then, can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda then?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, do we want to discuss this now, or should we put it under, should we do it now? Okay, go ahead.
Like I say, as you look at it, I was kind of surprised at the amount of information that we're asking for, from a perspective, people that may be buying it to develop it. And I'm just wondering if all that information is needed or required. And one thing that I noticed that wasn't in the RFP was a price of what a person may pay for it. There's a minimum of $75,000, I believe it was, yeah, minimum price. But in the RFP, it doesn't say, I guess, I don't understand. I'm assuming that if somebody is going to send us an RFP on this parcel, they've maybe done them before and have more knowledge on them than I do. So then it gets to be maybe even the timeline a little bit. If
So
we're,
let's stop there for just a minute. So do you have a problem with the minimum asking price, or what are you saying about the 75,000?
I guess, like I say, that would be when we get a proposal brought before us. I'm sure at some point during their proposal, they would give us an offer. And I think that offer would also weigh on who we would sell the parcel to. But like I say, if you're, if in a sense, it seems like nobody else has read the RFP. Maybe other people have, who may have more experience on the board here, may have some questions as to why we're asking certain questions of it. And then also, like I say, the timeline where they want to have it back by Friday, 4 o'clock on Friday the 14th. And the proposal hasn't been put in the paper or anything at this point, so we've got a shortened, 3-week period approximately, and if we should be extending that deadline.
As I mentioned, it's a draft. There will be a 4-week opportunity for people to reply.
Okay.
It'll be in, as was discussed at the meeting, in the Bemidji paper and in our local paper. I've spoken with Mary and HRDC and Dave Hengel, and they'll all get copies of it, along with the people who have expressed interest. So everybody that knows that, and this draft RFP specifies the elements that are common and typical for an economic development property. There's a minimum price, that'll be part of it. The net tax capacity developed by the proposal, the number of jobs created, the suitability for the location are all things that are typically included in this. That's why we pulled it from the sales list. If we just were gonna take the highest bid, we would have left it on the sales list and not had an opinion about what's the best development for that area. And this is very typical function of economic development.
I would think the more information we can gather about the proposal, and all of the workings of the proposal, the better information we would have to make a decision on how to move forward. I guess I don't have a problem with what is being asked for in this proposal. Once again, I don't understand the whole process as far as timelines and steps and everything. And is it customary to put a minimum price in there? I don't know that. I mean, if it's just like if you're gonna buy a house, well, you're gonna say, okay, $75,000 for the house, but if there's competition, is someone gonna say, okay, well, I'll offer you 125 instead? So I don't know if that falls into play with this at all.
I guess, to me, the biggest concern was that if in fact, I'm the only one that read it, if somebody else were to, even though it's a draft, if somebody else were to read it later and have questions and it's already been advertised, then is it too late? And I guess then that would be my request, that before the RFP is put in the paper, that perhaps we all get a copy of it so that we all can comment back to Jeff if we have any concerns.
So your biggest concern is the window of when it's presented?
I'd say my biggest concern is, did everybody read it? And then the window of opportunity there, in a sense, yeah, is one of them. I already mentioned to Jeff the error that was in it. It was just one sentence that had the wrong website. Otherwise, I read through it and I thought everything was fine. I was just surprised at the amount of information that we need, trying to think somewhere it was, one of them was, interim financing on the construction. You know, provide a statement of proposed method of financing the improvements, include specific information on interim financing of the construction, permit development financing, those kinds of things.
Again, very typical with
Yeah.
economic development.
Yes, because if we're gonna make a decision to approve, we wanna make sure whoever we're giving it to, they're qualified.
But how deep does a prospective buyer get into this kind of stuff without knowing if he owns the property or not?
Anybody that does this kind of stuff on a regular basis would know that they have to verify their financial ability to complete the project.
Okay.
And we need that, because the last thing you want to do is award it to somebody who then never finishes it.
And if the project isn't completed in the timeline specified in the contract that's developed off of this RFP, then the ownership returns to the county. That's the difference about selling this over the counter versus selling it to a developer and identifying developers that are suitable for that area.
Yep.
This is from an actual RFP from Pope County, which is why that was in there. It's been reviewed by our county attorney. It's very typical language.
So as long as there was a 4-week opportunity from the time we first release it
Yeah, so I'd
to
like,
bids, or RFP, to bids being accepted, or RFP results being fed back to it, that should be enough timeline.
We did discuss a lot of these bullet points at the meeting.
but like I say, I'm glad we pulled it from the minutes, because like I say, technically it wasn't provided at that board meeting. And then I'm glad we're having this discussion this morning. And then, like I say, if we can get the final draft prior to it being sent out, so that if, you know, we can, like I say, hopefully 5 sets of eyes looking at it and don't discover anything that we think needs to be in question. And otherwise I think it's a good, you know, like I say, it's has more information than I would think we would need, but
I'm more of a, the more the better, because we want to make sure that whoever the winner is, process meets our vision of how we want that developed.
yeah.
You know, otherwise if it's too vague, anything could happen there that might not fit our other ideas of how we think that area should be developed. So you gotta be careful with that, so the more information you get, you're gonna make the best choice.
Yeah,
And I
if you-
guess my regret on myself is that I didn't read the minutes when Denise sent them out a couple of days after our May 7th meeting. If I would have had the time and taken the time to read them back then, I probably would have caught this and we could have had a discussion. Maybe even talked about it during the work session or something like that. So some of it's on me too.
Yeah, I was kind of with, as far as the content, I don't have a problem. It's just presenting it in the minutes when it wasn't discussed at the meeting. That's where I have an issue of. It shouldn't have been done that way.
I recall reading through this a while ago, though, so it was presented, it must have been part of the original agenda packet, or was it sent separately?
I would have to check.
Yeah, it wasn't part of the packet I looked.
I was just going through stuff while Ted was talking and I didn't see it. So I think that was, this was the wrong way to present it to the board, is throwing it in the end of the minutes there.
And just in case the public was interested too, if we would have actually had it presented at that meeting, then the public that had watched, whether they watched it in person or streamed it or looked at it later, they might have then been interested and wanted to read the RFP themselves. But no, I think we've got, if, like I say, we pulled it from the minutes, I'm good with that. We've had this discussion, so I'm good with that. I don't know where we go from here. Do we need to make a motion or something or do we just ask Jeff that we get the final draft prior to it being published and then we're good to go?
Well, I would think we've had this discussion now, and we've had an opportunity to look at it right now. if we wait till the next meeting, it throws the timeline off, so I would prefer that we would pass.
Well, no, this is just a draft, so
I understand that.
I
but
can,
they're
I
gonna-
can forward the copy to everybody else before it goes out, but I really would like to publish it before
so would I.
Yeah,
next
because
meeting.
otherwise it can't get published till after the first June meeting.
Yeah, and I wished it was already published, but,
So if we adjust that timeline, so there's 4 weeks there,
yep.
and then make sure everybody sees a copy of it in case there's a last minute minor thing to change.
That's all I'm asking for today.
Okay. Do we need a motion or board consensus?
Just consensus, as
Okay.
far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Yep. Okay, so we're done with the consent agenda. Mike, do you want to come up and do county employee recognition, please?
Good morning, Board.
Morning.
As far as employee recognition, in highway, we have Luke Hartung, engineering worker, began the full-time seasonal position, on May 13th, 2024. Theodore Jackala, engineering worker, began the full-time seasonal position on May 20th, 24. In the Sheriff's Department, Miriam Ejaz, dispatcher jailer, is recognized for service from November 15th, 2022 to May 26th, 2024. And in solid waste, Roger McCullough, certified attendant 1, began the full-time position on May 6th, 2024.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you and welcome to those that were listed. Highway.
Good morning. I just have one item today, and it's more of a notification to you all that last year for the 2023 LRIP funding, JED had submitted an application for the intersection of CSAH 40 and 7, which is north of Dorset, north of Zorba's there, kind of a problem intersection. And it was selected for the LRIP grant in the award amount of $1,335,120. So we're currently working with a consultant on the road plan. It was submitted as a roundabout at that intersection. There is severe sight distance issues, if you're familiar with the intersection, speed through the intersection. So, yeah, I just want to let you know that that was a selected project for the LRIP funds, and we're moving forward with a consultant on the design of that project.
That is great news. That is not a good intersection. And so are you assuming work will start next year?
Yes, yeah, it's a big design of a project, and I still, I need to visualize, I need to see a plan of how it's gonna come together, because it is a unique intersection where it's in a valley versus, roundabouts are usually, the purpose of a roundabout is that you can't see the oncoming traffic for safety. So I need to visualize of what they're proposing as a design in terms of cutting down a hill or cutting down areas around the roundabout. But yes, potential for next year funding, yeah.
So I would imagine there will be right-of-way acquisitions and one to them.
Yeah, there's some right of way and a lot of cut and fill
Yeah.
areas. There's utilities in the way, and then meeting state standard, which they have ADA in the roundabouts, which you think is weird in a rural area like that, but that one specifically I'm very familiar with, and there is bikers and walkers and pedestrians
There
around,
is,
so
yeah.
you need more area than a standard or that you would think there's for the people.
You answered a question I had just this past weekend on roundabouts. I went through a couple of them, and they always had this big mound
Yep.
in the middle of it. Why did they do that?
Yeah, yep. So you're not supposed to see traffic coming at you because you're only supposed to concentrate on the right-hand movement, the circular movement. So, yeah, I mean, it creates a very nice jump for some people that don't pay attention, but that's for the purpose of that, the sight distance.
And I'm sure they gotta design it, for the occasional lowboy trailer that goes through there.
Yep, they are all built to the size. They have a modeling which isn't applicable to real life, it's a model, but they do show that, semis can drive through there. And, yeah, I've worked on quite a few roundabout projects when I was with MnDOT prior, and yeah, it takes a learning curve for some people to be able to use them, but I think this one in town here, I think, is showing that they are beneficial and they are doable with a semi.
I know that one that they had built in Bemidji, people with lowboy trailers had problems scraping the bottom of their trailers trying to go through the roundabout, so.
Yeah, and I think that raised center section is supposed to be, it's a mountable curb, they're supposed to be able to drive on, and I think that design has even changed a little bit now that they've seen issues with where they've lowered that mountable curb distance on them for that purpose.
Good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's good to see.
Updates?
Yeah, do
Oh,
you have
sure.
any updates?
Yeah.
I threw you under the spotlight.
Yeah, I'll give you a brief update. Of course, the rain is slowing a few things down, but on our county graveling, that is moving right along, a couple weeks ahead of schedule from last year. They're currently working on our Giziibii 32, and they have 4 roads left to do on the plan as far as the county roads go. The southwestern corner of the county is completed, so they've got more in the south central part of the county to complete, and our stockpiles should be completed this week under that contract. Calcium chloride's moving right along. That itself is 2 weeks ahead of schedule from last year. Currently, it's on hold for this week due to the moisture and some of the issues that can come up with that. But we'll see what things are looking like on Thursday is what I understand, and then if things are suitable, they'll continue on. Our County Road 13 project, where we're replacing the bridge over the Crowing River, continues to move along. It was scheduled tentatively for paving on the approach roads the first week of June. However, again, the weather might postpone that by about another week, but they are working on the approach grades, and they intend to cast the bridge railings, the concrete railings on the structure Friday. So our concrete breaks have been good as far as design goes, so the deck looks good. And other than that, I know our weed spraying contract, which was approved at the last board meeting, they contacted me, and their plan is, of course, weather dependent, probably to get going the first week of June, which would be nice. And yeah, that's about it. If there's
For now,
any questions?
we'll get more busy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
We love good news.
Yeah, yes, especially when it's money.
That's right. Josh? We don't like your news. Has nothing to do with you, though.
Yeah, no, I was when I put this agenda together, you know, it was before the end of the legislative session, and I was really hoping I would have good news to share, but with how the session ended, we definitely don't. So I'll just be pretty brief. I just wanted to touch on the status of our funding bonding bill that we had in the legislature this year. So at the end of session, you know, did not go smoothly, and no bonding bill was passed. So I think that kind of just means with our 9-county group, we just gotta continue to meet and regroup and reevaluate what our plan moving forward is gonna be. Again, most of us have, I think I've said this in the past, but you know, 5 to 6 years left on our either our permits or our capacities at our different landfills. So it is something that we need to continue to keep at the top of our list and trying to address the future of C&D landfilling within our county and within our region. So we'll see what lies ahead with that. So legislative wise, haven't really had a chance to see everything that came out of the end of session there. I think they did pass EPR language for extended producer responsibility, I think, with the packaging. So we'll see how that plays out and if that ends up reducing any of our disposal costs of some of that material in the future, or maybe opens up some additional recycling markets, but definitely too early to tell on that. So that's about all I had with the legislative updates. The only other things I had were related to our solid waste grants that I had at a couple meetings ago. We're going to be continuing to explore the grant opportunities that are coming out from the MPCA. next one's coming up, we'll probably be looking at seeing if we can improve our organics recycling and possibly some reuse updates, so, we'll see how they go, so. The only other thing I had was just to, touch on our reuse center. So the Hubbard County Reuse Center at the South Transfer Station, we are gonna be closed on this Saturday for the Memorial Day holiday. Our transfer station will be open regular hours, but the reuse center is gonna be closed. We have been averaging about 300 to 400 cars per day in the reuse center, with about 100 drop-offs a day. And so you look at that and look at the numbers we're getting, we're diverting anywhere from 2 to 3 tons of material that's, you know, coming in the reuse center and going out and being diverted from landfill disposal. So I think them are pretty positive numbers as we are starting this. Still working through challenges, trying to, you know, continue to make changes to make things more efficient, and we'll continue to work through them. But
Josh, is that 2 to 3 tons a day?
yep,
So before you go, I'm gonna actually, I was at the MRC meeting yesterday and they talked about the bill on the producer. So if you have any input, I'll just read this to the commissioners. So the bill that did pass puts, the cost of recycling onto the producer. It's the biggest change in recycling laws in 4 years. And 40% of the waste stream right now is projected, that's how much of that is producer-based, garbage isn't the right word, but, you know, boxes and containers. It's projected to grow quite a bit. By 2029, 50% of the cost to recycle those will be borne by the producer. And by 2031, 90% and beyond has to be paid by the producer. So all the residents and local governments are gonna see a 90% reduction in recycling costs and expanded services. I'm gonna wait to see how that develops.
You would think then they would maybe start making packaging.
They would package less, but, yeah, but, so then, we had a big discussion about how they're gonna pass this cost on to consumers, cause this is only in the state of Minnesota.
Sure.
And so MRC was pretty positive the way the bill is written, it's gonna be, the costs are gonna be so minute that no one's gonna see a cost increase on what they purchase, but I have a really hard time believing that they're not gonna justify. So one of the examples was if this would have gone through without amendments on a cell phone, on $1,000 cell phone, the producer cost would be $30. I don't know. So they also talked about that no businesses and no large nonprofits. So they didn't do it dollar-wise, they did it like a large nonprofit like Mayo. Is gonna be impacted by this bill. This is only residential, government, schools, child care centers, and smaller nonprofits. And then they said people who have to drive an hour to an hour and a half to recycle in the state of Minnesota, the producers will have to pay to add more drop-off sites, so they won't have to drive so far. So, anyway, it'll be interesting to see how it develops. They too said, in a 1,400-page bill, they had trouble even pulling this much out, but
Yep.
the boat wrap passed. We were already doing that. Josh had said at our last meeting. The egg bags didn't pass. However, some counties are already recycling all egg bags except the ones that have alfalfa in them because they're sticky, and so then there's residue that sticks onto the alfalfa bags. And then there's talk about down the road whether they will add clothing and textiles into this because there's so much plastic now that's made in clothing. So that's what I have on that, Josh.
Yeah, and I haven't looked at the boat wrap, I haven't really looked at that legislation, but that might help with some of our costs too, but
Okay.
fingers crossed, I'm actually hoping to get rid of two trailer loads of boat wrap this week, so we'll see if the marketer comes through with us, so.
Okay. Did you have something, Dave?
Who do they consider the producer?
They didn't go into that, so I don't know if it's the Asheville manufacturer or the third party that's selling. They didn't define producer. However, MRC said the bill was 1,435 pages, and they couldn't even find the portion in the bill that had the spreadsheet that showed, the budgeted items for all the different things passed in the bill, and so they said this was all that they could pull out before the
And
the
they-
meeting
they-
tomorrow, or yesterday.
Producer has to repackage or just pay
They have to pay for the cost of
the recycling?
the recycling of the package. So supposedly, because a lot of things are overpackaged. But my thing is, since it's only for the state of Minnesota, if I'm a manufacturer in New York, I'm not gonna repackage just to satisfy the state of Minnesota. I'm just gonna pay the fee.
Well, yeah, what they'll do is the rest of the country will pay
Yes, for
a
the
few
state of
cents
Minnesota. Yep.
extra because the state of Minnesota decided to tax the rest of the country.
That's right.
And then it's a question, the producer, so is the producer the company that made the packaging?
They
Or
didn't
is it
go
the-
into that.
Is it the producer that's selling the product that's in the package?
Yep.
I mean, think of everything you buy now, it comes in the plastic packaging. That's virtually impossible to open most of the time, without a scissors or a knife.
And a
But
lot
all
of that
that-
isn't even recyclable.
Yeah, that's just, yeah.
I think some of the goals are with this is to have the producers, and whether, again, not sure if it's the business or the producers, but have them have a hand in, making sure they're putting, starting to package things and stuff that is recyclable. A lot of times they're made up of different types of material, in the same product where you can't separate or recycle that. So hopefully it'll lead to smarter packaging choices so that material can be recycled. And then, yeah, we have there is some of these producer responsibility, bills in place. One is with paint, for instance, paint
Yeah, we
care.
talked about that.
So how that works is if you go buy a can of paint now, you're paying a tax on, a can of paint. But then that pretty much, that money that's collected, they have a third-party organization that kind of runs all that, and that ends up supporting or paying for most of our disposal for our paint that we have to cease. So, but I'm not too familiar with all the details of the bill, and it's going to take a while to
Well, no one
know
else
how
is
it's going to
either, so-
know it's going to actually impact us and if it'll help. But
Right.
so,
Okay, thanks, Josh.
thank you.
Okay, Jeff?
I just have a couple of items. The first item was forwarded by Commissioner Christensen as a request for a letter of support. And we were hoping that
Yeah, Connie was gonna be
Connie
here.
was gonna be here. But honestly, I don't think that this is a hard thing for the board to support. They're applying for grants to provide senior services at their new facility. And it's pretty typical for us to be asked for a letter of support.
So the new facility was pretty much given to living at home?
I read that.
Yep, and so what they're gonna have there is, they're living at home, things that they're doing right now at their center. Plus, it's gonna be the senior center and educational place. It's gonna have a community kitchen. The, care closet will all be there. And then they're gonna be able to open an adult day center for care here. And so currently, we are busing people to Walker. The adult day center here will be licensed for 24. Walker has a license for 24, and Bemidji has a license for 84. And if you read in the materials, currently Hubbard County is second in the state for people 65 years and older. We are 26% in our population, and by 2030, we are expected to grow in Hubbard County to 30 to 35% of our population. Aging, and I talked to someone that cares for an adult and how important it is to have an adult daycare. Just for one reason, for the caregiver to have a break, but also it's a socialization time for the other adults. So anyway, I'm very much in favor of this, and Connie volunteered to come to a work session, so her and Jeff are gonna work out a date so she can come and tell us more.
I definitely support this too. The need is there, obviously, and
Yeah.
it's only gonna grow. The only question I had is the sentence in there about Cass County, Minnesota. Cass County, is currently 25.1% of persons 65 and older.
Well, those those facts would have been given by Connie.
Okay. And I know that you'd mentioned Beltrami County, so,
Well, I mentioned Beltrami County as far as, the amount of daycare positions they're licensed for.
okay.
Yeah.
So, but I know you talked about Walker too, so I know that's Cass County, so.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't
okay.
know if living in Park Rapids, living at home in Park Rapids, if they're associated with Walker too.
They are right now because they bus people
Okay.
to the center.
So now this makes
For the,
sense.
yep, uh-huh,
Thank you.
yep,
Yeah, I'll move to approve the letter.
okay.
Support.
Dave moves,
I'll second.
Steve seconds. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, and the next item?
It's coming to be budget season, and this is the first request letter that we've gotten this year. And as much as I can remember, we have not approved this request in the amount of time that I've been here, so.
I actually did some research on this because I was really curious, and so I came up with a news article from the Bemidji Pioneer. Beltrami County just approved this for their county. Interestingly enough, the USDA last year cut off all funding for this organization. And in reviewing what they do, if you go to their website, I feel like we already have things in place for people and organizations that are interacting and grant writing and collaborating together. So I don't see a need to become a member here.
Like I mentioned, the last several years, Hubbard County SWCD gets the same request, and they turned it down every time too.
Yeah. So, do we want a motion and say no, or should we just not take action at all?
I would prefer a motion so that I can respond to
Okay,
the request.
I will move that we do not become a member.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
I
Opposed, motion carries. Scott, you missed public comment, it was first thing.
Oh, it was first thing, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Was Krista Knudsen and Mike Weiner and one Senate for one county?
Yes, yeah. They weren't here, so Alan and what was the woman's name?
Vicky?
Nikki presented.
Sent somebody up.
Yep,
All right, I figured it was at the end of this session, like
okay.
business or something.
Okay, for committee reports, if you don't mind, I'm gonna start because I wanna get to the 10-10 meeting, so if it goes on, I'll turn the meeting over to Steve. What I have is, two things. One is, AMC District 2, we met yesterday, just people, the board chairs and then the administrators to plan what the agenda would be for June 5th, and we talked about how important it is for commissioners to attend, so if anybody is able to attend that day, I'll be attending. I think Jeff will be also. Jeff is gonna be sharing on information on property tax. I suggested that would be one of the agenda items. It'd be helpful for the other counties to hear that. And then MRC, started out yesterday, Sam Walseth, said it was the worst that it's ever been down there, the way the session ended. For MRC priorities, drainage, they retain the local authority, and they maintain public waters. And then the SCORE grant, they couldn't find what passed yet in the 1,400 page. The infrastructure, package passed, childcare passed, but there again, they couldn't find the information quick enough in the bill for the presentation yesterday. The elections policy passed, which is if a vacancy occurs in less than 2 years. I believe I have this right, but there again, they didn't have the wording. The vacancy would not have to require a special election for elected officials, which includes school boards. They passed a bill for the Uber and Lyft what their payment, or what their hourly wage is. The Karma Task Force bill passed. There was $24 million passed for EMS. Permitting reform passed, didn't have any, none of these they had details on yet. Cannabis passed, that was put into, new legislation on cannabis, that was put in the Commerce bill, they don't know what's in that yet. There was things that passed in the judiciary, education, the legacy, the jobs, and the tax bill. And the tax bill, they didn't even see a conference bill on that, so they have no clue what's in there. What didn't pass was the bonding bill, the Equal Right Constitution Amendment, the land transfer to White Earth, and the sanctuary state. So they thought, no matter who is elected next year, the constitutional amendment will be back up, as will the land transfer, but the sanctuary state, they felt would be dead on arrival even next year. They couldn't get enough votes this year on either side. As you well know, the Tyler bill was awarded $109 million, but they don't have the language. They thought the language that was adopted was the language that AMC and MRC approved, but they hadn't seen that for sure. The state minimum wage is either the CPI index or 5%, whichever is less. And unemployment benefits for striking workers was not included. There's an enhancement for the child care tax credit. The family paid medical leave. In 2023, it was going to be 0.7% of payroll tax. In 2024, instead it's now 0.88%. And they're suggesting that all counties budget 0.6% in their upcoming budgets to make sure it's covered. Supposedly, that's paid half by the employer and half by the employee. And it's slated to go in effect 1/1/26. We'll see what happens at the next session. The drainage registration portal didn't pass. The drain tile disclosure bill did not pass. The DNR was awarded $1 million per year through year 2032 to update the public water inventory. Sell a land within the boundary of the Indian Reservation, it goes into effect 1/1/25. Any lands that are forfeited after 1/1/25. So if the county puts a portion of or a piece of property up for sale that's within the reservation and it does not sell at the auction, then the reservation has first chance to buy it. And so the elk herd, that passed not in the form that Kitson County wanted, but it passed that it will not be allowed to exceed 130% of the estimated population in 2024. They didn't have a number for that. And there's a work group which would include people from Grigla, Kitson County, private landowners, local government owners, and tribes to try come up with a way to handle the elk. And if you don't remember, I shared at one meeting, they talked about at MRC, the elk are eating, the crops, and they have to prove that there's been damage, and they can only get paid, the landowner can only get paid up to $500. There's 3 things that can happen to Senator Mitchell. She can either resign, she can be removed by the 2026 election, or 2/3 of the body can vote to remove her. Sam did remind us that because she's an elected official, if she's found guilty and actually sent to jail, if she doesn't resign, she would remain a senator while she was in prison. And then Bob Van He talked just gave a heads up from Red Lake County to be aware about the CO2 that's being pushed in that area. Funding is coming from BlackRock and John Deere. Their goal is to have eminent domain for the takeover. And then Excel said that the only energy that they will put in their new lines will be renewable energy. And let's see. Oh, the other thing was we voted to have the 9 boxes of MRC digitized from the conception until now, at a cost of $2,000. And I think that is it.
I got a question from that wild hog video that you sent.
Yes,
That's Kitson County?
that's Kitson County.
Okay, because that's what I was remembering when I showed some people that I know, and it was all the same reaction. Whoa.
And they came down from Canada because Canada's having trouble with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been reading about that, and I know that supposedly they haven't come to Minnesota, but sure looks like they're here.
It's amazing, isn't it? They just kept coming.
It's crazy.
They're in Wisconsin and Michigan too.
So I was all excited when the wild turkeys were starting to show up, and I'm thinking someday I'm gonna be able to hunt them in my backyard. And now I don't know about the wild hogs. Am I gonna be able to do the same thing? I don't know if I want that.
So MRC doesn't meet again until September, but if you recall, we broke down into each category. So we're gonna take, each category is gonna take the priorities and decide if we wanna keep those, tweak them, or change them. And then they'll bring them forth again. And so it's a great organization. I'm really happy that we're a part of it. So Steve, I'm gonna turn the meeting over to you.
Okay.
Thank you. And I will go, the rest of you, if you wanna come over, it's at Northwoods Bank. So it's the Forest Council for the state of Minnesota, and at 10:10, the person that is in charge of tourism will be talking.
Okay, so I guess we will continue with committee reports. David, did you wanna?
I've got nothing
Okay,
anyhow.
great. I don't have anything either. I was gonna leave HRA to Ted since he's the primary. So this is short and sweet. Tom, do you have any?
Yeah, we had the SWCD meeting. A guy named Nick Budd gave a good presentation on groundwater in Hubbard County, and he said he would like to give that same presentation to this board sometime, so he might be.
He's contacted Eric.
He's contacted
That'll come
you.
through Eric if it does.
Okay. All right. The Freshwater Festival went well. I volunteered for that. Yeah, you read in the paper, it had 286 graders. And thankfully the rain held off until it was right at the very end. As I was driving home, it started pouring. Let's see, the Giziibii Library had that meeting, the board meeting. They made their move for the local library and made their move to downstairs. I stopped in there on their Tuesday after the first day, and that first day they had over 20 patrons there already for just that Monday. So people got the word out and they're going to it. And the other thing that we did last Thursday, we approved the budgeting schedule and some parameters for development of the 2025 budget. So I'm on the budget committee for the library, and I know a couple meetings for that. That 10-year forest management plan meeting, the first one, that was Thursday? Yeah, Thursday, because I had to run off early to get to the library meeting in Pine River. We reviewed and discussed the first section of the 10-year management plan, and that mainly dealt with the history of forest lands in Hubbard County, and then got into recreation quite a bit. The next meeting will cover timber management, leases and easements, and then on forest roads, how to go forward with those. One thing I didn't have on my list here, but I can add it. There wasn't a meeting, but I got a email from Eric Hoagland. He's on the Trails Board. Locally, we were requesting $6.28 million to develop Phase 2. So that won't happen this year. That phase would have taken it from the tunnel down to Emmaville. So that's put off for at least another year. Hopefully they'll get on it next year. That's all I got.
I was kind of disappointed when I read that.
Yep.
Just to kind of touch on the forest management plan that Tom had talked and I were both at, I thought there was a good turnout.
Yeah.
I mean, the conference room there was full. There was some good discussion, and I'm glad to see the the stakeholders, the variety of people that were there. It was good. Let's see, start off with, okay, had the forest management plan, then it had the Headwaters Regional Development Commission. Of course, we took, we took the annual photo, and this has happened at pretty much a lot of my board meetings where they take photos. You don't have the majority, I mean, you have a quorum, but you don't have a lot of people are missing. So you're supposed to be taking a group photo of board members, and you don't have the whole board there, so that's kind of disappointing. Let's see. We broke up into small groups, and then we kind of rotated. One group, at one area, we talked about community development. The HRDC development staff worked on projects that aim to improve the lives of those living within the Headwaters region. HRDC accomplishes this by working with customers in a variety of areas to help address the most critical issues. So they were talking about the things that they do, like placemaking. That's kind of more of a community thing. We're hoping to bring that here to Park Rapids. A lot of it that I've noticed that's been done in other counties, and specifically Beltrami County, is they're going to a lot of these low-income housing and just basically meeting the people, talking about the community needs and stuff like that. They also have events with the boys and girls clubs, hospitals, the police departments, county public health, scouts, and all these other groups to build relationships with these people, and to make the community stronger. We also talked about food hubs. I know one of the things, and maybe I touched on this last meeting, they did comment that the farmers market in Park Rapids here is what they feel is the best in the 5-county region that makes up the HRDC. So that was good to hear. SHIP, State Health Improvement Plan, talked about the active living, student wellness committees, tobacco cessation, and healthy foods. Also about the sustainable and clean energy, community action plans, and the radio board. We're all part of the community development. We also talked about economic development. The staff is works cooperatively with economic development and community development partners throughout the region in creation of new jobs by providing general planning guidance, technical assistance, specific projects, and services to regional and local units of government. So they've talked about the planning services that they provide, the revolving loan funds, board management, if needed. I know that there's a couple of counties already in the HRDC group that have EDAs, and they the management is through the HRDC. And they also talked about the strategic planning and leadership under economic development. Another topic was housing resources. Let's see, one way to make our community successful is through housing. HRDC has a robust housing team with each of our employees experienced in different projects, areas that can address your local needs. They talked about housing lending opportunities, small cities, single-family new construction, multifamily construction. And then there was also transportation resources. I know the TAC, transportation, oh boy, I used to be on that board. I don't remember what TAC stands for, TAC?
Transportation
Advisory
Advisory Council.
There you go. So like I say, that's part of what the HRDC does, utilizing partnerships with MnDOT and work on regionally significant planning and development projects in transportation. They serve as transportation experts in small towns, facilitated grant writing and planning, provided a safe and reliable transportation network. I know that we've been working, HRDC has been working with Akeley on some of their county, Highway 34 through their town, and also with the trailhead for the ATV trails there. We also deal with Regional Transportation Coordination Council, RTCC, Active Transportation, Carbon Reduction Program, Safe Routes to School, which this year LaPorte received the grant, and they're in the process of planning the safe routes to the school there. Infrastructure improvements and programming and education. And so that, oh, and then of course we started, like now, it's the budget season is starting, so we kind of hit on that. And then this is something that I'm hoping that we're gonna, HRDC will spread to Hubbard County here too. They have, this is what the dates for picnics that they'll be having in Bemidji. Through the summer, just about a couple every month. Of course, the National Night Out is on there. But like I say, this is, that they do this to kind of, like I say, help bring the community together, and that'll help make us stronger communities. Let's see, I also had the HRA, excuse me, last night. Went through, of course, the normal board stuff. We did sell one property. We also have a purchase agreement on a second property, which is actually over asking price. And that will be, we've got an attorney that's gonna review everything on that, and then there'll be a closing date set. We already authorized our chair and our treasurer to sign off on that when the attorney approves the purchase agreement. Let's see, talked about staffing updates. Sarah Wilcox, that used to run the meetings for us, has taken, well, she's resigned from HRDC. She's going, joining her husband's business and helping out there. So I think that's kind of nice, you know, family businesses, I think are important. Let's see. And I think that there's still some confusion on the, what do you want to call it, the paperwork, the cash flow statements and stuff like that we get from DW Jones. Some of the board members still have questions as to what all that stuff means, and they're still looking for just basically a summary so that they can hit the high spots. And if we want to go through all the pages and pages of documentation that they provide for us, and we could do that. And then last night, we had the Hubbard County Township Association meeting. Let's see, I guess there was one part there where Reno got up and was talking about the policy that they have for the MET. And there was a little bit of back and forth between him and one supervisor. And finally, one other supervisor asked if we could move on. And a couple minutes later, we did. Corey spoke, Corey Alkus, our sheriff, spoke about the jail project, which there was some people, you know, concerned there about the costs and stuff. And then Tom and I also kind of chimed in on the bonding and stuff like that, and maybe how we could we're getting rid of one bond and going into another, and maybe we could use some of the money that we're collecting now for capital improvements to help soften the blow on those bonds. Let's see. There was also some discussion, well, they talked about EMS services coming out of Walker and stuff, and some of the struggles that they're having there. And then I also commented that there isn't emergency medical services in a lot of Hubbard County. You can think about like my area. I don't know if you call an ambulance from Bemidji, it could take a while. But we're not normally part of their service area. I was part of the Bemidji Rural Fire Association, and currently, if you have an issue, a medical issue at home or in the surrounding Bemidji community there, the fire department will come. And then if they need transport to a hospital, then they'll call an ambulance. But now, even though 5 townships in Hubbard County are part of the Bemidji Rural Fire Association, if they make a call because somebody's having a heart attack or something like that, they don't come. And I know this was years ago, when I was on that board, the city manager at the time told me if it was one of my loved ones, I would be packing them up in a car and getting them to town instead of waiting for an ambulance. So I guess it depends on what the situation is, but it's emergency services it's needed all over. And currently, I don't think we have it in the entire county.
So speaking to that, Ted, because that was a topic at the public policy conference last spring, and to try and get more funding for that, which looks like they got some, but
30 million, I think, out of the
some
124
counties
they
are
asked for.
struggling with exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Do a paramedic as a sheriff deputy.
Oh, yeah, something like
So
that.
they have a paramedic that's a sheriff deputy, and they equip a squad car with the appropriate stuff, and that becomes that first responder.
That'd be an excellent idea.
So we'll have to keep an eye on this. If it doesn't straighten out, there are other options we could explore if we continue to have any concerns about it.
The entire state of Minnesota is covered by an ambulance service district.
Okay.
There's a map on the EMSRB that shows that everybody's covered within an ambulance service district, and every ambulance service district has a responsibility to respond.
Okay.
So that's,
Just the question of the response times.
it's a matter of response times. But there's a map here, I'll send the email, with a link that every single area is covered.
Okay, that's good to have. I know that there's a group out of Besida that are emergency responders too.
Bemidji Ambulance Service covers the northern third. North Ambulance Service covers Park Rapids, and then the section to the west is covered by the Walker Service District. But they all have service districts. They're all identified by number. They all are recorded with the state and have a responsibility to respond.
You had a response?
There's a newer thing called community paramedic. And I've seen those vehicles around, and I don't know exactly what they do.
They would be, every ambulance service district is regulated by the state, and every service district has a medical director, and the terms of what's available and what's appropriate for response within a service district is included in the contract that is recorded with the state. So everybody has a response.
I guess one of the things that I would like to see, if there's gonna be a service district created in the county, that the townships that are involved in that service district have a voice on some sort of a board or an advisory council, rather than somebody at North making all the decisions with no input from the people who are actually paying for it.
If an ambulance service district, if an ambulance taxing district is created, there's a statutory requirement for that board. All of the Hubbard County and Cass County Board of Commissioners would have to sign off on that proposal and that agreement. That the proposal is in the works, but right now it's still in the hands of Walker. Walker holds the license for that service district, and until they kick it to us with directions.
Yeah, there's been some conversation about
Yep.
the need for a second ambulance in a separate location, when perhaps the Walker, I'm gonna call it the Walker shop for ambulance, could perhaps service two, because I know the talk is that the county highway department is going to be building a new structure in Hackensack, and much like some of the other sites, that this ambulance building is gonna be incorporated into that structure. But some people are saying they're not sure that that's gonna really equate to a better response time, where you could just respond out of Walker. Instead, why build another facility with more money that could just be utilized for something that's already there? I don't know all the parameters of it, but
You know,
That's the
staffing was
gist
an
of
issue,
it.
staffing was an issue too.
It could very well be, yeah.
We talked about they could maybe add ambulances and that, but if they don't have anybody to
Yeah.
drive them.
Well, it'd be the same thing if they have a new building and don't have anybody to,
There's two competing problems there too. I mean, you wanna add more ambulance so you can lower the response time, but financially, they're struggling to make it.
yeah.
Yeah,
And so
already.
if you add more ambulances, you created more damage to the business model. So how do you do both?
Yeah.
That's the struggle they have, that making that work.
Well, like you say, the repayment rates already, they're losing money. Then the last thing that came up at the Township Association meeting last night, there was that one gentleman asked about Deep Lake Park, and he wanted to know why we don't just sell that so we can help pay for the jail. So there was a little bit of a lively discussion there. You know, we're just explaining it to him that we can't do that, plus it was given to us for this opportunity. You know, and Tom spoke about how it would increase tourism, and it's a good thing for the county, as did I. And then he talked about the hundreds of thousands of acres of tax forfeited land Hubbard County has. Why don't we start selling that? Why do we have all that? You know, and as he's saying that, Tim Humphrey from Fardin Township is right next to him, and you can see him smiling, because Tim knows that we're looking at doing exactly what this gentleman was talking about, selling some of our tax forfeited land. But I'm looking at more like increasing our tax capacity and our tax base and stuff like that, where that gentleman was thinking about the money from it, you know, and paying for stuff, which I guess might be that opportunity too, but it was.
Also, there's a lot of tax forfeited land in the county. Much of it is not marketable, as we discovered in our last sale, so.
Most of what we manage, we make more money managing than we would take in taxes until it's developed, and
Yeah.
it's not developable, so it is actually serving the best purpose.
That's why I told him, like with state land, we're getting built, you know, and like, you know, the forest, the stumpage that we're getting and stuff like that. So I said, it's not just sitting there not doing anything.
I have a feeling this gentleman was from my district. Am I correct?
I don't know for sure.
All right. I've had a couple conversations to that extent.
I let them know that for timber sales, we're on track for over $1 million in timber sales this year.
Yeah.
Considerable revenue.
Is that all?
Yes, that's all I got.
Okay. Upcoming meetings, the AMC district meetings, June 5th in Beltrami County. Do we have a time on that? Is that at 10?
8 o'clock.
Eight, I
Eight?
believe.
I think it starts at 8.
Okay, all right.
I think it starts at 8, and because in the past, when I've gone there, the courthouse isn't open yet.
Oh,
So you gotta wait for them to unlock the doors so you can get into the meeting. Unless,
okay.
Registration starts at 8. I think it starts a little bit after that, maybe.
Yeah, so don't show up at a quarter to 8 thinking you're being early, because you can't get in.
the last time though, they had one of the guys, what was it even, Matt or Ryan? He was keeping an eye on the door, so when I came up to the door, I could see him when he came to open it up for me and that, so.
Department head meeting next Tuesday, the 28th.
I believe it's my turn,
Okay.
unless somebody else wants to do it.
Well, I'm gonna be gone. Yeah.
And, Jeff, we did not cover this item, the agenda item report.
Yes, we did. We added that to
Oh,
consent.
we added it to
We added
consent.
that
Okay,
to
great.
consent.
I just had it sitting here. Okay, very good. Well, if there's nothing else, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.